Hey, it's Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it is Monday. It's June the 2nd. This will be our chart lesson for today. I'm getting started a little bit early today. Um, I'm going to get out of here early. There's a championship baseball game here today for the NCAA regionals, so um, I'm planning on going to the game. So I apologize, but I'm going to go ahead and do this early. It's only about 11 o'clock, but I'm done for the day. Uh, Still a little choppy, still rangy acting, but there was some good movement down and some good movement up. And I'm just going to say this. I've said this a couple of times lately. They just do not want to sell this market. And I believe that this selling, this is just my opinion, but I believe that all this selling is the big guys dumping the prices just so they can get a better entry to take it up. Nobody wants to buy it up here at these new highs, so they have a hard time getting buyers in. So they drive it down and they get everybody thinking short, and they reverse it and they trap them in and they take it higher. And so that's just my opinion, but I believe that's what's happening. Every time we get down to these, I mean, you can see this was that same place we couldn't get through on Friday of last week, where a lot of people got trapped down here, and there was a good short here, and they just cannot get it below that point. That's where the buying came in, and you see they drove it right through there the first time, but they had everybody on the ropes because they had them all trapped long, and then they bring it down here and they get them all thinking short, and they trap them again and reverse it, and it's once we got through that. Let me just put the line on here. It makes it easier. You can see we got through that area here fairly easily the first time. And then we start going higher and they try to come back through. And where does it bounce? Twice at that same 1915 level there. And that's telling you something. And there's probably a lot of, there's probably some traders that might have gotten aggressive and gone long there. I think it's too early, and you don't want to go long at these highs right across here. So I just waited on the trap, which came right here, and got one last trade, and then actually you got one last trade right here. So, but I'm going to go over the trades real quick and wrap it up and call it a day because I'm going to get out of here early. And it looks like it's just probably going to be a range day. We may make another new high. Wouldn't surprise me at all. But I'm guessing we're probably just going to have a range day today. And you got a clear channel working down, and you got a clear channel working up. And what happens is they get so many people trapped, and then they have to reverse out of here that you can't come back for the retest. Just like Friday, we finally got a retest, but it took a long time. We moved we moved a substantial amount down before we reversed and went up. And I just would be very careful selling this thing. I mean, it was really nervous for me to take this trade right here. I'll just be honest. These aren't so bad. But this one, because every time we get down to a previous low, you get trapped in there. But that's just too bearish right there. I really like that bearish bar. And it's a failed second entry long as well. That's why I really liked it. And, this is basically a range. So this is like a new high right here. You got a first entry, you pull back. Generally, you're going to get a better bounce than this. And it doesn't. It gets just really bearish selling. And no way you can go short right here. There's no way to get in that part. You have to already be in here to ride that down, in my opinion. So um, I just don't see any logical way that you want to risk entering here, because otherwise you end up like this 9 times out of 10. Yeah, and that's what happens to people. They see this move right here and they're thinking, man, I missed that. And then they suck you into the same thing right here, and you don't want to miss it again. And guess what? Then it reverses. And I can just hear it because I've been there. I've done that. You're sitting here watching this and you're mad at yourself. And you say, boy, I'm not missing that again. And then you get this great setup right here. And turned out to be, I mean, it wasn't even an easy scalp. I almost exited this trade because I could feel it coming. I knew that trap was coming. But when we worked on lower, I held on. And of course, you don't get any runners out of it. And this is generally where your runners come in off the trend line. But it turned out to be a good scalp. But I almost exited this trade. I'll just be honest with you, because I was so nervous about this thing. I mean, I could feel it. It was coming. When this big bearish bar comes and you get a doji, That's not a good sign. This thing should have broke lower, just like right here, and went on down, just like these other times, and it just didn't. And then you end up with another inside bar, and that's where I almost exited. But we ended up pushing on down, and I actually got a little bit better entry on this. I didn't use a stop. I used a limit order, so I was out of this one before we actually broke on lower there. Okay, sorry, I had a little interruption there, but anyway, this set up really nicely, and when we couldn't go lower, I almost scratched the trade, and I held on, and it was like over here. It just reminded me so much of this spot right here, and you can see that's where we're at again. So I just had a bad feeling about that one, but I held on and it worked out. And you just never know. If you exit, it'll probably work out, and if you don't exit, it probably won't work out. So it's the law of trading. And whatever you decide to do, it'll be the wrong thing. Unfortunately. But let's talk about the trades, and I'm going to wrap this thing up and call it a day. But I was a little bit late. I wasn't here when this set up. I was a little bit late getting in here this morning. And but I think you want to go long here. It's so close to the last closes right here and those highs that you probably want to use a limit order. And when it stalled right here, it didn't go. There's actually a second entry right there, but you can't take that one, I don't think. It's definitely too close to the highs, and there's too much overlap by that time. But this looked like a good setup, and I probably would have gone long there. Um, I actually don't know if a stop would have worked. If you used a stop, I think it's 23. Yeah, it's a 4 tick failure. Whether or not you would have got filled, that's hard to say. But you know, I think you probably want to use a limit order right there on that trade. And that is a second entry long. You got your first entry. There's really a second entry long right above that bar, but you don't want to go long there. And that's at 5 o'clock this morning anyway. So it was really slow in here. And so, but I believe you just about got to take that one right there. Um, if you didn't get out, if you used a stop and didn't get out, when this ended as a doji, and especially when this one started down, you better just take what it'll give you because you're probably coming back to the other side. And then you actually go lower here and get this pullback in a big bearish bar, and that's a breakout pullback short right there. And I like that one. That's a second entry. Uh, it's really bearish coming down, and it looked like it was going to be real bullish. And when that closes on its low, I like that one for a nice short right there, breakout pullback short. Again, if you didn't get out by the time it starts bouncing here, it'd probably make you really nervous, but it bounces on down. And then you get the failed second entry long. And there's no good setup here, at least not on my chart. You notice how bearish this is, and then you get a bullish, fairly bullish looking bar, but you're almost back to the EMA there. And so when it turns down right there, that's a failed second entry long, and I like that. Look how bearish that is. If you tried to use a limit order, you probably got left behind on it, so you just about had to use a stop. And notice how it comes back, because I guarantee there's a lot of players that used a limit here. They didn't get in, and notice how it comes back and it gives them a chance to get in at the market. It's amazing how efficient this market is, and you get trapped on a trade like right here. Even if you held, look, it comes back and it gives you a chance to get out right here. And I can show you stuff like that over and over and over, why prices pull back to certain areas where they do. And look at this one right here. If you got trapped short right there, look, it comes back. It gives you a chance to get out. Most of the time you don't want to ride that out because it won't always come back, but I can show you over and over where it comes back and gives you just enough room to get out, and then it reverses. And it's just the ES is just a very efficient market, and if you understand it and you learn its tendencies and you learn to read the chart and understand the price action, it can be a great market to trade. So but anyway, failed second entry long there. I don't see any way to get in this trade. If this would have been closed on its low after breaking lower there, because you don't know if it's gonna, once it starts on, once you get proof that it's going lower, you know it's probably going to the next measured line down, but you can't tell that right here. It could just be an overshoot, and you don't want to be going low. If this is not a midline, you can't go low right there because it probably turns down and bounces. So I just don't see a way to safely get in this trade. When it pulled back here, if it would have broke higher and then turned down, maybe, yeah, but it never does that. And then it just kind of overlaps. So I kept hoping to get a little trap there, some kind of pullback, but it just never happened. It kept going lower. So I never saw a way to get in that trade, not safely. And then I didn't want to take the second entry here because, there's a horrible setup. You aren't back to the EMA. I could see that trapping people. And that's what it does. It traps people, then it turns up. And then you get it went out the top. So what I did was just have to stop to go short right there below that bar. And man, it dropped real. It didn't look like it was going to break lower. I thought it was going to end up closing without breaking lower. And then I was going to change my order. But just before this bar closed, it dropped straight down and then broke below that one. So it turned out, again, we talked about it, made me a little nervous, but it goes down. And I don't think you can risk going long here because it could just come back up and then turn down. But I really was expecting this. I really was. And, after watching it do that over here and then finding support right here and then bouncing on the double bottom, there's probably some people that will probably go long there. I wasn't going to risk it because I was trying to get done early today and I was already, it was too late in the day for me for the fact that I'm quitting by lunchtime today to try to take that trade. Because if I'm wrong, then I got to kind of start over or I got to make it up or whatever. So I didn't risk it, but I think it's probably worth considering. So I'll mark it in green. And then there's a failed second entry short here. Notice the new low. They broke it lower right across here. I don't have a line there, but you should have your line across there. And you can see that double bottom of those matching lows. And you break one tick lower, and it's a perfect measured move off the midline because it looked like this was going to be the channel, but it's just a perfect measure. And it could be that we might have a break and a move up. But I'm thinking there's a bigger channel here. Doesn't mean you're going to not break it and go lower, though, so be careful because that's kind of been the MO lately, that we don't come back and retest these things. There's too much selling pressure going down and too much buying. The market's just too nervous right now is the word for it. So, but anyway, you get this little trap. Now you got all the shorts trapped, no doubt about it. And I was just waiting for a failed second entry short there. You probably want to wait on this bar and put your stop there. I'll be honest, I already had my stop there because as soon as it breaks higher above any previous bar without getting its turning down, it's already it's a failure. So I was in this. I had to ride this little correction out back over to the midline again. But you could have even entered that with a stop. And, I know that normally I'd say you don't want to go long right there at those highs. But with the trap and the fact that this thing is working off this little short-term trend line, a bigger midline, you can't ignore that, especially the way this market's been. You can see how it shot up quickly. That's because they had everybody trapped. Everybody's trying to get short again. And I get that. Because normally you would want to be looking for a short after a break of this channel, but it just hadn't been like that lately. So you just got to be real careful. Every time this thing looks like it's going to sell off, they trap everybody on the wrong side and reverse it. So, and that looked a little like a break. That could be iffy. So being that iffy when you got a second entry long right here, and this is kind of the only reason I call this a second entry long, I'm actually just scratch that. It's really not a second entry. It's a first entry, but I was looking at it as the first break of this, and it is bouncing and crawling right up that midline. So I liked it for a retest of the high, and you can see we went up and we just made one tick higher, and we got two legs down. Now we'll see if we bounce here and go higher. But that's what I saw today. And, not a lot of trades, but there's some really good trades today. Most of the movement has been fairly decent. And, this is what you don't want to see, this kind of stuff. I don't mind it being a range day when you get some good movement one way or the other, but this is what really kills us when you just get this stuff. There's no way to hardly make money right there. And that's why I drew this one green, because there's just not a lot of room back to the top. You got to get in real close to the highs or the lows, and it's just impossible to do. And if you did enter this one here, let's say you went long on that break lower. One, two, three. You might have gotten out of that trade. Let me just see. But somebody sent me this, and he thought this was a breakout pullback long. He was just mistaken on. I think he has it backwards. 22. It's a 4-tick failure if you didn't get filled there, which you probably didn't. But being that that's a bearish bar, I wouldn't have gone long there unless I could. I don't know. That's so close to the low. I might, you might consider that. But if you draw your short-term trend lines, you'll see there's no reason to go long, and that's what kept me out of it. You can see that. That's the first break. Now, if it would have bounced here, then maybe you consider it, but it just keeps going low. And the main thing was it turned down right there. I originally had this line drawn right across here um, and adjusted it some, but I just pulled it up, and when it turned down right off of it, that bearish, I'm thinking breakout pullback short there. So um, if you don't do anything, you just skip that trade. So, and another trader sent me that. He said, I wanted to get in on this stuff right here. He says, but he said I just couldn't make heads or tails of it. So I remembered your rule: if you don't know what's going on, sit out. And he said instead of getting chopped up like I would have in the old days, I just watched it, and I didn't make any money, but I didn't lose any money. And that's the key. If you're not sure, don't trade. Um, this looks pretty like a fairly sure thing here, but I always tell people a lot of times you're better off to wait on the second entry short. But I liked it because there's a trap there, there's a failed second entry long, and the trend in bias is down at the moment, and there's no break of this trend line. So I'm thinking, I like this to the short side. Now they almost forced me out, but sometimes you just have to stand your ground and say I'm going to go one way or the other, and whichever way you decide to go, you just go with it. Because when you start second guessing yourself, they'll trick you every time. So, but anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. Be careful selling this market. That doesn't mean when you got a nice trend working down that you can't sell it. But when it starts to look odd like it does right here, I mean, literally, this should have taken off down. When it didn't, that was not a good sign. This right here is a typical trap to get you trapped to the long side, and then it turns back down. And they did that, and so they made it look like they had everybody trapped to the long side, and then it's going to go lower, and it can't go lower. And when the market can't go lower, it's going higher. And when a market can't go higher like here, it's going lower. And so just be careful trading the lows. And after there's been a big move lately, it seems like there's always a big rally. Just like we had this little rangy looking thing, and they had the biggest move of the day was down, and then guess what? The best part of the day was up from there on. And that's kind of their MO. And again, what I think is happening, this is just my personal opinion, is they can't get it higher. There's not enough buyers willing to come in at these prices. So they let it sell off, and they get out of the way, and they let it drop. And that way they're able to buy down here. And you can see that's some strong buying right there. There's no bar that backs up, and that's the other thing. I don't have the short-term trend line, but you got to draw these things. And you can see that. So until you get a break and a chance to go higher. And there's your break and two legs up to a new high, and then it turns down. That was another reason I like that short. And I forget to talk about some of these little odd things sometimes, but I'm always drawing these short-term trend lines. Even if you don't see them on here, I drew them and then removed them because I hate when my chart gets all cluttered up and all the lines starting to get away. Once the line's no good anymore, I usually remove it. I generally try to leave them on there until I get through with the chart lesson, but or I'll try to put them back on, but sometimes I forget. So anyway, that's what I saw today. I'm going to wrap it up, and we'll be back to do it tomorrow. This is Mack with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.